Hello, hello. Now I have to get my things in order. Hello. Here we are. It's another Space Cats happy hour episode, kind of a morning space chat. Even though it's the afternoon. We are April 10th.
Hmm.
Um, and our last episode was recorded on April 6th. So this is a quick turnaround for us. And we're going to be talking about our theme, You Are Not Alone, today, which is a nice one, cozy. I am Zaddy Cat, aka Sun Portal, aka Canadian KK. With me, as always, is the illustrious,
Dread Pirate KK in the
yeah,
house. American KK.
American
Yeah.
KK. Yeah, we're we're keeping we're keeping those two countries in
Connected,
connected.
represented.
We're blurring those imaginary boundaries between my home and your home.
Yeah.
Um, it's really cool because everything that all the subtopics that came up for this all fit into the larger topics. And so uh, I just think that's really kind of nice and synchronicitous. Did I say that word correctly? Oh, first, I just wanted to show. Okay, I'm always here. I'll show something nice first. If you're watching the video, oh, by the way, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, but Spotify and YouTube have the video versions if you want to see. So I'm always collecting whenever I go outside
Wow.
little dried things and twigs to
Oh,
make
I love
these little flower arrangements. I'm holding up a clear vase with a bunch of dried flowers and sticks and stuff. So I'm always have my eye. And then I found this piece of bark that I brought home, but um, it really just looks like a crushed turd, like somebody stomped all over a huge dog turd.
it. I wasn't gonna say
And
it.
so it's been like lying around the house, just looking really gross. But I think I'm still going to find something to do with it.
Oh yeah.
This is just this big chunk of bark, and I was like, yeah, I need that. But yeah, it's very off-putting right now at the
You know
moment.
what? Don't take anything too seriously. Dog shit is funny. Like
Yeah, it's true. Very
it's
true.
just
Maybe I'll prank people with it.
yeah.
I've been dying to get back into pranking. I'm a pranker.
Oh yeah.
Um, Last episode that we put out, the one about finding peace in a post truth reality. If you haven't heard it, I urge you to at least go back and look at the links that I posted in the show notes because I did a big good news roundup and then I was kind of vague because I couldn't remember the actual stories, but then I went and found a bunch. So there was a lot of nice articles if you need a mood boost in the show notes of that episode, about, yeah, a lot of good news stories. And just as we were about to record today, Mike, my partner, sent me a link to a story about how they've found, uh, it's looking like it's a cure for HIV in Canada, a new treatment that would cure. And so where I live. Um, and so that's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of good news. So I'll include the
Huge.
link to that as well.
Yeah.
So that's my one for today. I have a few things I want to get to as well, but we were just talking beforehand, and I want you, if you feel like it, to talk about the Three Eye Atlas stuff, and then that'll lead
Yeah.
into other things.
Yeah. So on March 17th, we had the closest flyby of Three Atlas to Jupiter. And I made a TikTok, I don't know, sometime last year where, because we'd been tracking this whole thing. I've talked about it on this podcast before, but if you haven't listened to all of it, that's fine. I don't want to re-summarize it, but like I'll do my best. But we tracked the perihelion, which is its closest flyby to the sun. It also had one to Mars, which I was interpreting as like a rewriting of the divine masculine. And then the one close to the sun, like the sun in astrology is like our identity, our consciousness, and the sun like blasted us as it passed by. It was blasting with extra like flares and geomagnetic storms and all kinds of stuff. We were getting lots of updated codes. And then it had a flyby to Earth, closest flyby to Earth, which is its own, like, giving us all the neutrinos, which I'll come back to in a second. And then it had a flyby to Mars or Jupiter. And I don't think I got the order right necessarily, but anyway, all of those together. So Jupiter is the planet of expansion and higher consciousness, and I was associating that with like mass awakenings. And because that happened on March 17th, close
Mhm.
to Easter,
Mhm.
there was a prophecy from Chris Bledsoe and the Blue Lady. And Chris Bledsoe was he's a UFO experiencer, all kinds, obviously had contact with aliens, whatever. And he's taken very seriously, not just by conspiracy theorists, but like the CIA and like people who take this reality very seriously. So that, he's got a good reputation, and he has this. He talked with this Blue Lady, and she told him that around, I don't think she said Easter of 2026, but like we all kind of started to figure out it was Easter of 2026. Oh, go ahead.
Just the blue lady would be like an entity that he
Yeah.
spoke with, that he was like communicating with. Gotcha.
Yeah. Just some, yeah, in meditation kind of thing. Or maybe he saw her with his real eyes. I don't know. But yeah, she appeared to him and gave him all this information. And I only remembered the part of the prophecy that was like when the blue star Cucina, well, it ties in with the Hopi prophecy, which talks about the blue star Cucina rising above the Sphinx. And anyway, I won't get all of this correct, but basically what was happening is like a lot of people in these spiritual communities were figuring out that the Hopi prophecy and the Blue Lady prophecy were all talking about Easter of 2026. And it had to do with like blue star Cucina was, I can't remember now. Oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed. Regulus, I think, is the star that was supposed to rise above the thing.
Oh,
And then the red sun or something. Anyway, it was like this whole thing above the pyramids, and like it was
I
basically
saw that.
Easter.
That happened, right? Like it,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
rose. Yeah, I saw it post about that.
yeah. And so you had sent me
Like
this,
photos.
like a screenshot of something that you had found on the internet about this prophecy. And I had forgotten that part of the prophecy was when Iran and Israel were exchanging missiles, and then also the red star Regulus rising above the star of the Sphinx, and then also something about orbs. And when I saw the thing about orbs, I was like, oh, dang, I've been, it
The,
made me think of the fireballs that we've all been seeing closest to Earth. And it started in
right.
Ohio and Germany, although they're seeing it like everywhere now, because I watch Stefan Burns, Space Weatherman, and he's been talking about this. And so when
And that started in February or March?
it started at the end of March.
At the end of
Yeah.
March, right. Got it.
And it's basically fireballs or like, meteorites or something that just like streaks across the sky that is not a shooting star, but it's not a missile, but it's not like everyone's like, is this warfare? Like, what is, but people are finding these like meteorites. And the first one was reported in Ohio, which you sent me because I didn't even know about it. Anyway, so there's like
Yes.
hundreds and hundreds of sightings of these fireballs. And it's not just because we have more cell phones catching things or whatever. There's just literally more of them, and people are reporting them. And so Stefan Burns was thinking that it was remnants of Three Eye Atlas. So whether that was due to like passing close to the sun or passing close to Earth, like I don't really know how it's entering our atmosphere. But yeah, go ahead.
And just for people who aren't familiar with Three Eye
Oh,
Atlas,
yeah. It is the third interstellar object that we have publicly tracked by NASA. And the first interstellar object came through in 2017, right before we had that New York Times article admitting that the Galactic Federation was real, but they only talked to Israel and America. So it was like a psyop, but it was also testing the waters about disclosure. And the second interstellar object that came through was in late 2019, right before COVID hit. And so this third one comes in, and we're all like, "Yep, something's gonna happen." Like, and we can kind of see like these. I was associated with like mass awakenings and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, who knows what the chaos is going to play out to make that happen? But it feels like very tied in with the rewriting of the divine masculine, our whole identity as humanity and consciousness, and then also, the flyby of Jupiter with the mass awakening type thing. So
yeah,
yeah, I was tying in all of
yeah.
these like And these the in the prophecy it was talking about orbs. I was like, what if that is actually all these fireballs that are coming in? And when I was talking about the neutrinos coming in, I said it would tie back to it in a minute. Neutrinos are just like the most common element in the universe. It's like, man, I'm like blanking on my smarts at this point. I know I've talked about it in my stream before, but it's like invisible particles kind of thing. If they were visible, all you would see is neutrinos basically. It's some like subatomic particle, I think, and it carries information. And so
Nearly massless, electrically neutral elementary particles,
there you
often
go.
called ghost particles because they rarely interact with matter. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, I like the electrically and the neutral. That seems
Uh-huh.
very
Among the
interesting.
among the most abundant particles in the universe, created by stars, nuclear reactors, and radioactive decay.
Yeah.
Trillions stream through human bodies every second without
Hmm.
effect. Well, without effect.
Yeah. So we're used to all the neutrinos that we have in this like particular solar system. And so it's like, when Mercury does this with this planet, and that is a kind of neutrino that it's like an information stream and it kind of affects us in different ways. And anyway, but this interstellar object coming through is bringing from billions of light years away, 3I Atlas coming in, or like the other two were coming in. I don't know how far away they came from, but 3I Atlas was so far away. We didn't even know, we don't know how to predict its trajectory. And so it's bringing in all these new neutrinos. And the fact that, like, bits of it, if you buy into that theory that these meteorites, these fireballs that we're seeing, are part of Three Atlas, which I believe they are. Maybe there's more stuff going on too, but like it feels correct to me to have that be part of the story where it's like, here we are with like literal and Three Atlas was carrying a lot of organic matter. And so life forms in whatever elemental way are entering our atmosphere, and it's like elements of consciousness and all kinds of new information, and like it's going to take the time it takes to sort of arise within us, and it's not going to, it's not like a switch is going to be flipped kind of thing, but like also as we talked about earlier today, it just feels like everything is speeding up in general. So maybe it
Maybe
is
a
more like a
switch
so
will be flipped.
yeah. Exactly. So that was,
I
the
really
trigger.
like your how you interpreted the orbs as these fireballs. That's very interesting and cool to me.
Because we also have seen a lot more. There have been orb sightings, especially over like military bases or airports and stuff, and people are like, "Oh my God!" And so that is also a thing. And I'm not discounting that that is part of whatever the prophecy, but also it just felt too on the nose to have these like fireballs come in with like the prophecies and all kinds of everything. So,
That also made me just think of, do you remember? I think it might have been 2020, but I'm not 100% sure, in the summer when there were places all over the world that were hearing these crazy sounds in the sky, and everybody would just be like woken up at night and go out, and
no.
they were like recording it. There was some in China, but I I was seeing stuff online, but specifically my friend Steffi, who's Colombian and lives in Medellin, she experienced it and she told me about it. And it was
Oh,
like this, like massive, like deep metallic groan,
interesting.
just coming from everywhere. And she talked about going outside with her dad and just standing outside and being like,
Whoa.
yeah, and just being like, I don't know what this, like, it's just like what. And
Yeah.
that makes me think, because there's so much of this year 2026 that parallels 2020 in terms of acceleration and psychedelia,
Yeah.
that in addition to orbs and fireballs, we might, yeah, my right toes going off saying, yeah, we're probably going to get more of those massive sound
Interesting.
um things as well.
Yeah.
But so the three eye atlas stuff, it ties into something that I'm going to talk about related to death, which also ties into You Are Not Alone. But also directly, it's just like, I think the overall message of You Are Not Alone, as it has come through to me at least, is just that we're never alone. That's like one of the biggest illusions that we have, is of being alone. It's like, I think one of the things that I don't think it's the only way to experience this, but coming into our whatever, like materializing into our physical incarnation as a human being, um, as a current iteration of a human being is to be able to like experience the sense of aloneness that
Hmm.
is like just so um not present in other forms of consciousness that you kind of like you could see why you'd want to find that you find that interesting and you'd be curious to experience to a perception that was like sort of safeguarded against knowing that we are in fact never alone. Our energy is never alone, and we're just big, you know, the metaphor that always comes to mind is like we're just a big mushroom, you know, we're like a big
Yeah.
metaphysical fungus consciousness thing.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, the Three Eye Atlas part of that is this really cool human experience that, and like our solar system, our galaxy story that we're in, experience of getting to connect with actual like what we call aliens and ETs and stuff, and with which Three Eye Atlas is like considered to probably be a ship, right?
Mhm.
Or some kind of something that is,
Something. Yeah.
you know, engineered by some other entity out there, and how beautiful and magical
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah, it
Um,
was really cool to track it because I hadn't really tracked the other two at all because I was kind of before I was doing any of this stuff, but I just kept feeling because they're all, you know, all of humanity at this point was like kind of focused on it in a way that we haven't been about stuff like this before, except for maybe an eclipse or, you know, whatever. And it just felt like a really cool, like this thing had been traveling for billions of years, just kind of choo 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 through this all the solar systems, all the deep space, you know, like all the everything, and in this major crescendo moment, of just like, you know, a few days here, there, one day here, a perihelion, you know, whatever, and it was just like it just felt so worth it, like traveling billions of years and like having this like huge consciousness moment, like everyone's like, oh my God, it's flying over the earth, like wow, you know? And I was like, can you imagine just being Three Eye Atlas, whatever it is, if you're just traveling for billions of years and you have this tiny moment, but it is such a big moment that like, and then it just kind of keeps traveling on its way. I don't know, it just feels like it was a really cute little
it
experience because
is.
that was also it was coming through doing all these things at like some of the worst moments of my life today, you know, or just like losing the Midnight Diner and like moving and like just being in this crazy stress portal of like everything was yucky and I knew it was going to be fine, but like I wasn't doing well. And so it was just like, oh, something nice that just kind of keeps me, all right, everything's going to be okay. I know it's going to be Three Eye Atlas is coming. What a
Yeah,
cool
because it's
story it has, you know? Anyway.
yeah, it truly does. I remember us talking before about Three Eye Atlas and the it has like mineral components that point to it not being just a naturally, organically
There's something
occurring
unusual about it, yeah.
object, and something that would be actually crafted like a
Hmm.
spacecraft. But that also ties in, and I'll get back to that later. But I just want to talk about the death
Mm.
aspect very briefly. And heads up, I'm going to be discussing a, somebody, a friend of a friend who ended their life, but in a very neutral, like we're not going into any details or anything like that. But if that's triggered, like maybe skip ahead a few minutes. It shouldn't take more than about a few minutes. It was actually what I would call what I'm going to say, be saying about it is very uplifting.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yes, because this ties back to the Three Eye Atlas thing because it was March 17th that this occurred. And you were just talking about that date earlier and how it related to Three Eye Atlas. So on that day, I had a dream where I was talking to a group of people about how this is the lifetime where we're no longer going to go through death unconsciously, like literally in the sense of like blacking out, and then whatever happens next, you end up reforming into a new entity, but you're like, if it's like you come out of that blacked out as well. And in this version, you're going to be aware and conscious through the entire process. And this is like finally the lifetime where it happens. Caveat, that's not necessarily true for everybody, but it's a doorway that's opening up for those who are choosing it in this incarnation. Um, and I was saying it's not as scary as it sounds. And when I woke up, I was like, it does sound kind of like this is information I've personally been receiving and like mulling over since the beginning of my awakening, and how that would feel, and how it's more like death is more like just a relaxing dissolve, and like just letting go. It's like literally letting go of all the tension you holding your idea of your physical self together, and everything, and all your timelines and all your relationships and everything in your life, holding it all. You just like, it's like the most relaxing dissolve of that. But this was the first time I was in a dream, like talking about it to other people. Mm-hmm. And my friend, one of my closest friends, who was nickname is Panda, she was, her energy, I felt her present in the dream. So I was talking to her earlier this week. We hadn't spoken, over a month. And I was telling her about this dream, and she said, what day did you have that? And I said, it was March 17th. And she said, oh, that was the day that it was her ex who had ended his life that day. And what was very interesting about it was I, and you, I think as well, have been experiencing death differently for a long time now. And this is part of again, it's kind of another component of the you are not alone, which is like the other illusion of, aside from us being like separate from each other and distinct and able to be alone, is that death is final, and that you're like this cut off thing that then ceases to exist. And it's like, you're part of this ever morphing whole that just reforms and reforms and reforms. But so we've been experiencing death differently. And when I've been hearing about deaths, even those like relatively close to me in my life, I've been experiencing them from much different place, especially after like having sessions with people where I was hearing from their dead loved ones, or having dead people like trying to get my attention, and like hearing from, like having all these meditations and journeys where I connected with my own loved ones who'd passed on, and all of that stuff. Like it hasn't completely taken away my human understanding of death and my fear and all that like clench and like the grief or whatever, but it's completely like it's completely transformed it. And so I've been going around having that, but as Panda was telling me this story of how the funeral service or whatever, the memorial that they held for this person played out, this was the first time I had ever heard anything like this from somebody else, which was, she's talking about what a joyful affair it was, and how he had a teenage daughter, he had an ex-wife, so it obviously could have been an extremely like shocked, tragic unfolding, but it was just like, there was so much laughter, there was so much connection, there was so much love, outpouring of love. And this friend has also been on a metaphysical journey since she was a child. She's been experiencing all sorts of things. So it didn't surprise me that she would be experiencing it that way. I should say able to, because that's the garbage, but she would be experiencing it that way. But it was very surprising to hear about like a whole group of people experiencing a suicide in that way. And she was saying for her own grief, like she went to her friend's house afterwards and she said, I have to stay in your spare room for about 24 hours. I'm going to be crying a lot. Don't worry. And she just like cried and cried and cried. And hung out with her friend, and then like she felt like really afterwards like she had grieved, and it was like, and she wasn't like rocked, she wasn't destabilized, she was just, and she had this like sense that's like uh he he was in a, he'd gone to a state where he was doing better.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
That's awesome.
yeah. um and I think we did an episode where you were talking, we were talking more about like destigmatizing and like getting the charge out of suicide. I think part of why we stigmatize it is because we think if we don't, it'll encourage people, but it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It always is with stigma. Stigma doesn't ever help somebody feel more like
Yay, let's go.
empowered to like
Yeah.
keep on living.
Hmm.
um but yeah, so that was that part, and how it connected to that date I thought was quite
That is really fascinating, especially
interesting.
that dream. Damn.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I've done meditations actually where I do the, okay, you're dying right now, and I just let go of everything. It's not something I can do all the time. Like I have to be in the state where I can really, whatever. It's not something I needed. Like who needs to do that all the time? But every
Right.
once in a while I do it, and it's really interesting because then I ask myself when I'm doing it, and I get to that place and I'm just seeing everything. I'm like, okay, this is fun. Like you're not going to finish this. You're not going to anything. That's gone. You're not going to see this person. This gone, 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 gone. Um, and then I ask myself, like, what am I going to miss the most? It's always something that I would never have guessed.
Like what?
um, well, because like I'm writing these books for kids, and that's like my main project, and I have all these relationships that I love, and it was like, no, none of that. It's you're gonna miss doing sensory art projects where you're like they're very sensory, and you're gonna miss just that aspect of life because all the other stuff, like you're not actually um, losing your connection to anybody. So that's not going to
Got it.
bother you. And these projects, like they've gone, their energy has gone out, whether they're finished and finished, your soul knows that that doesn't even matter at all. You're just going to experience that like sensory, like playing with color and texture in that particular way.
Yeah. That's interesting because like I was just having I was talking to I don't remember who. We were both kind of feeling like down or whatever, or maybe he was. Anyway, I I was saying what I do when I feel a little down or like, oh man, this is like, why am I still here? Why is nothing happening? Like it's stuck in the in between or whatever. And I'm like, I remind myself, and it works this time because I used to have to kind of really talk myself into it, but now it's just like I remember that being able to be here is so fucking magical. Like no matter how bad it gets or any of that stuff, and I'm not saying I enjoy the bad, whatever, but like I came into a physical body because I want to eat this delicious food. I want to swim in a pond. I want to feel the grass. I want to like smell things and like having a body is like whoa, like totally and being on Earth. I mean, what? And so I can feel
I
how
mean, what?
rich it is to just be in a and it's not like I want to escape anymore to go back to the like where it's easy and like oh finally get away from the suffering or whatever. It's like man, you don't have any privacy there. You get your speaking of like not being alone or like never being alone, it's like and maybe it just like kind of leads into that discussion too, because it's just wow, I get to have all these and so I just like enjoy even if I'm eating something bad like sugar or whatever, I'm like, but I get to eat sugar. I can't do that when I'm a spirit. I don't know.
I know. It's the sensory stuff is
Yeah.
we really take it for granted.
Hmm.
But I think what's going to be so cool is the other thing that we're seeing is all these breakthroughs around longevity and stuff, and like things that can potentially extend human lifespan. And um, what I feel coming is just consciously choosing when you choose to leave your human form, as opposed to following the current story we have around life cycles and age. which I think horrifies some people because they associate with that with nature, but it's just our current story around what's natural for humans, and it hasn't always been. Um, and um, Also, I was just thinking about this, like we already have an example in the animal kingdom of an animal that doesn't grow old and die, and that's the immortal jellyfish. The only reason it dies is if it's eaten or attacked or something. But other than that, something will trigger something, and then it'll revert back to a younger state. And so that's already a part of nature. So we're already seeing. So the clues are always embedded in the illusion. The
Yeah.
clues of what's actually possible are always embedded. Anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting, and I don't know how far we're going to get in the next 20, 30 years. I have no idea how far we're going to get with that, but that is definitely something that I've been feeling it since the get
Yeah.
go is coming in.
That actually reminds me of one of the things I forgot to talk about in the good news section last time because you were talking about longevity, I think, or maybe it made me whatever. I had just reposted. I'll see if I can find the link for you. It was on Facebook, I think, and it was a article talking about how through sound therapy, like fucking sound therapy, a group of 70-year-olds came out of these sound therapy sessions with all the DNA markers, like organs, internal organ, like literally not just like like external appearance, but like internal, all the cells in their body. It was like they were 30. And the price of the thing wasn't even that expensive. It was like 4,000 something, whatever, which I know is maybe out of the range of a lot of people. Like I couldn't do that, for example, but like it wasn't $1 million or like even several hundred thousand, it's not, and it's just sound therapy. So anyway, that is absolutely already on the table. And I feel like it's going to be as fast as everything is moving right now. It kind of feels like, because I've been associating the next, so like Pluto and Aquarius lasts for 20 years. So for the next 20 years, we're going to have like a lot of innovation, blah, 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 whatever. But specifically, the next 7 years, once Uranus moves fully into Gemini, which it's going to do at the end of April, those 7 years, that is another marker of like mind-blowing technological advances and like all kinds of new inventions and different everything. And so I feel like the next 7 years are going to be pretty mind-blowing in addition to stuff that's going to be happening over the next 20 years. And it's just kind of going to continue because like we're shedding the old reality of like it has to happen according to the according to the planets or like whatever. It's like no, 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 we're just going to do our own thing.
That's very cool to hear. Yeah. Huzzah.
Hello.
um, okay, so the other piece of good, it is a good news update that I wanted to talk about that tied in with the theme that kind of really brought together the download epiphany that I'd had the other day about this topic of You Are Not Alone is the Artemis trip around the dark side of the moon. And the first thing I have to say, as someone who experiences everything as like this dream with all this metaphor, everything's metaphor, the fact that we were going to the moon, in the tarot, it's the subconscious, right? We're going to finally see its dark side at the time when everything, this whole dark side of our human subconscious collective has been brought up, and we're like rooting around in it, and we're seeing it all play out at once. Every aspect of it um, felt very on the nose. And that
Yeah.
the rocket ship was named after Artemis, is the protector of like children, and that it had this crew that was like very diverse and included a woman, and just all these aspects of it. But so that's number one. Also, it feels very connected to me to these waves that have been propelling us through and into these accelerated realities and like crumblings, propelling the crumbling of empire and of old systems. So I'm sure there's ones before that if I thought back, I would twig to, but I definitely the heated rivalry, which I really not talk about, but like that, if you were online during, and even not online, it was leaking out everywhere, but like, holy shit, the wave of especially women's desire, but also just like joy and delight and like a feeling of like romance and just like so much love that like it was massive. And that after we'd had the fall, which in my oracle reading for the fall, it was very like resting energy. And it was a very stagnant time. Things like all this dense stuff was still happening, but it was very stagnant. Nothing was like moving on it. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like happening to us. You know, we were just like beaten down. We're like, and exhausted by it. And then this wave of heated rivalry just like took off around the world. Um, and then propelled us into the winter, which was like, whoa, wake up. It's happening. Everything's crumbling. Wake
Mm-hmm.
up to the lie that your power is in anything external. Wake up to the lie that there's an external truth that's fed to you as opposed to um, your own connection to knowing and truth and your own truth and like multiple truths at one. Wake up, wake up, wake up. All of this crumble, crumble. We're seeing it all. Um,
Yeah.
and so I also wanted to talk a little bit about that. And also when I was just talking about that external knowing, um, that we have this idea that tuning into external sources of information and data and knowing is the only way to feel connected to the collective. That's how you turn it like to like some kind of collective consensus and stuff, when that's just our limited understanding of our own ways of receiving information. When you're trusting your own inner knowing, it's not just an individual thing that you're isolating yourself from the collective. You're going into your inner connection to the collective conscious awareness, and that collective knowledge base, it's tapped into like multiple realities, multiple points of time, as opposed to like this single external fixed one, right? So we're in this learning process right now where we're building trust with that inner sense of connectedness. But that's what came through is it's the opposite. Like people think it's like, oh, you're going into solipsism or you're going into only believing what you believe and you're not taking in, but like it's that the lie is that when you go inward, you're only listening to yourself. You're tapping into all of it, right? Another aspect of how we're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
um, but back to Artemis. So so that we had heated rivalry. Now we have looked this up. Now we have Artemis that created these beautiful flight paths that looked like a treble clef and showed us these incredible shots of the moon. And people were just like posting them and saying like, we're all in this shot. That's so crazy. It's so
Aw.
beautiful. It was just creating this huge surge of like love for humanity and like tenderness towards humanity. Um, I have trouble saying the word tender because it got so used. Anyway, moving on. I always cringe a bit when I hear the word tender, but just this massive like kind of tapping into that like deep unconditional love sort of. We got to experience that a bit of that feeling that astronauts get when they're out and they say they look and then like they just have this like profound emotional shift. And then the stories, there was the story of the astronaut whose wife had passed from cancer, and then they named a crater after her and they were crying. People have just been
Oh,
like,
I didn't
it's
know
been
that.
like people have been like crying and so
Oh my
emotional over
gosh.
this trip to the moon. And the other aspect of it was that the ship is built from recycled parts of other ships, and they carried on board, they brought all of this stuff on board, including hardware from the Challenger.
I did
And
not know that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and some fabric scrap from like the Wright brothers, like all of it, like they have the badge from
Whoa.
Apollo 8. They have all of this stuff, and they carried like these stones that were engraved with all these people's names and stuff. Like there was so much collective energy in that rocket ship that held 4
Woo.
astronauts. And
Yeah.
that was like the exact thing that I was like, that is the exact metaphor for what came, the download I got, which is like, if when we're talking about loneliness and feeling alone, and especially in the time of like technology and whatever capitalism, it's like there's a difference between saying, I have a need for in person human connection and community connection that's not being fulfilled at this moment. And that is an important need. And I, you know,
We all need it. Yeah.
to I am alone
Mm.
because, and the perspective shift of seeing how you're never alone through things like, you know, I'll give an example of myself with the book. Um, there were lots of ways that I didn't feel alone with the book, but when it came to like publicizing and that kind of marketing and all these things and the publishing, like that journey that I was on of learning how to self-publish and then like market, um, I felt like I had everything resting on my shoulders to make it work. And I felt so alone. But in addition to the ways that I did see that I was receiving help, but there were all these other ways that I wouldn't have thought of, which were like, I was getting all these in like things in my feed about these groups that offered seminars and stuff on how to do these things,
I
or
remember that. Yeah.
lists. There was so much information that from Googling and on the internet that I could access. It's just that type of thing that's so base level that we're so used to, but it's like the web of connection, the connectedness is there. Like I'm literally was never at any point using tools that hadn't been designed by other people, you know,
Hmm.
or templates, or yeah, going to an online seminar that sometimes I would leave like still confused and bewildered because what I wanted was like a physical person just sitting with me and doing it for me or guiding me. But in the end, the journey of doing it this way, and maybe that need as a neurodivergent person is very important to express. And I did need extra things, but it didn't mean that I was alone. Like literally, you're you're always like sitting in buildings that were designed and engineered. You were sitting on like every app, it's woven into everything, like
Mm.
that presence of community. It's um like, and if it's not, if you're living in a hut that you built yourself in the woods, then you are connected to nature, and it's only our story that like prioritizes human connection over everything else that tells us that we're alone if we're on our own in nature. You're like connecting with all of the very like alive, conscious, vibrant nature, and you're connecting with, you're surrounded by multidimensional entities and fae and spirit, and like all of this
Hmm.
stuff is just constantly there. It's like you couldn't be less alone if you tried. or
Yeah.
like or like go up, you know, even that they people have referenced that poor little dog that would Leica that was sent up
Hmm.
on that, and like how lonely, you know, they project all this loneliness onto her. um but like she was in a rocket ship that was engineered, but like she was like being monitored. She was surrounded by whatever entities were there with her. I'm sure her ancestors were
Yeah.
present, you know, like she was not alone.
No.
She may have been very lonely and
Hmm.
scared, which is very sad. And I'll move on from it because it's making me emotional. But oh, I think I'm connecting with her a bit. Yeah. She was not alone, um, in the truest sense
Yeah.
of the word at all. And it was that, it's like, And to have that perspective shift just shifts things internally so much that so that you're not constantly telling yourself a story over and over again that reinforces like I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone. It's like I'm connected in all of these ways that I may not be fully feeling into at this moment or kind of perceiving,
Mhm.
but I can choose to perceive them. I can choose to connect more deeply with them. And that is like a way, it's like medicine, you know, it's like it's a healing thing that can bring your consciousness, your mind and your soul and your spirit and your little nervous system to a place where then as a baseline, you're not so frazzled that you can't then see opportunities to go and connect with other human
Yeah,
beings and form community more easily, you know?
very good point. Yeah, I was actually just having a meltdown the other day about stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm alone. Like, I can't do this and this and this. And even though I was having that meltdown, I knew there was like another part of me that was like, you're not actually like you have friends who can do this and this for you. Like you ask for help, like it's fine. So even though I needed whatever energy was moving through me where I needed to have that meltdown, I at the same time I knew I was going to come out of it and be like, okay, here are my options. I know I can reach out to these people and this person will help me and whatever. And it was hilarious because it was over something stupid like meal planning and I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this and I'm now responsible for like this whole household of people and I'm like, and it's like I knew that I could reach out to my friend Julie and she's been meal planning for her family for a few years now and she is very organized and she loves to help me if I just so it's just like little things like that where I was like, because I felt so stupid. I was like, you can't even do something like find a recipe. You're an idiot kind of thing. I was like in my head and doing all the things. And I was like, just because it's a new thing, imposter syndrome and all this stuff that was coming up. And I really just felt so alone. I was like, there's no way I can do this and stuff. And anyway, just the fear portals going through. And then I was like, yeah. And sure enough, I literally talked to my friend Julie that night and she was like, oh, I got a website. Oh, I got this. I got that. I'm like, that's like totally fine. So even though I still need to do the things, I can feel the stretch of like, I'm starting these new things, this new life, and like I know I came here to do this. I know I came here, I can feel it deep in my bones, and so I know I'm already successful. I just the new me is emerging from the old me, and it's like, oh fuck, like I don't think I can do this because I've just never done it before. But like, guess what? The new you has done it before in the future, or it's like you're just gonna get used to it, and it's gonna be okay. And it reminds me, like when you were talking when you first proposed this episode title, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. Because even as a kid, I felt like I was being watched all the time, even when I was alone. I was like, I don't know what, and I clearly it's the guides, the
So
ancestors, like
cool.
nature, like all the things. And sometimes when I was a kid, I would get flashes of my dad's face and my great grandmother's face, like in my head, and I was like, what? Why am I thinking about them right now? My dad died when I was 4, so it's like ancestral stuff. And so I would think about them randomly, and now I know that it's like they were telling me they were there, and like here that and so even as a kid, like my entire life, I've just felt like I've been watched, and now I understand that we really just are never alone. There's energy everywhere. There's beings, and the veil is very thin, and we come here to forget that. And so part of like as we talk about moving back into group consciousness and all this stuff, like a part of me is like already nostalgic for the privacy or whatever illusion of privacy that I have right now is like nobody knows my thoughts, nobody knows my feelings. I am all alone. Phew. And now it's like, well, are you though?
Yeah, well, I didn't have that sensation growing up. I was haunted by a terrible sense of loneliness. Um, just it was like one of the most defining feelings
Yeah.
of uh, my life. And now, but it was like premised entirely on this belief that in order to not be alone, I had to have like a human companion with me who understood me completely at all times. Like that was the
Hmm.
way to not be alone. And it's like, again, it's not, it's like there can be very important need for a specific type of human contact and community that's not being met, but to um, construe that as aloneness
Right.
is the distorted perception that it amplifies the loneliness so much. It's like we're prioritizing this one way of being in connection over all the ways that we're constantly in connection. And I think sometimes, like, um, just if we have that perspective shift, it can, but which has happened to me in recent years, where I just don't feel so when I'm because I spent also huge swatches of time on my own with not a lot of human contact in all phases of my life. And now I still do, but I just don't have that same baseline perception of it as like being alone.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and also like, you know, I, I see myself now as a plural thing more than a singular
Me
as
too.
well. So I'm also like with myself and I
Hmm.
enjoy being with myself more. That's also a part of it. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
it was just that shift to like loosen the grip that it that has the like, you know, the loneliness of epidemic, whatever, right? Of of elderly people, like that. In fact, loosening that grip is going to allow us to be less nihilistic and cynical and more optimistic
Hmm.
and hopeful about being able to make those important human one-on-one and community connections.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed a relaxing of my own nervous system and my whole body is just once I started to, because like you, I also was very, very lonely growing up. Oh my God, I've just felt so loneliness has been a major part of both of our journeys. And so it was nice listening to you talk about that because when I started my awakening and like getting in touch with myself and God and all the universe, Mother Nature, like all and then I really felt at peace as it became more and more anchored into me that I am not alone, even when I'm alone. And so I going from spending time alone, being like, oh my gosh, I'm so lonely. It's like I'm not though. I feel so peace and that peacefulness has translated into a less frazzled nervous system that allows me to connect with other people to bring in community, like physical people in my space and friends and that kind of thing. And then the whole thing about lessons around like make sure it's the right people because I was, but it was more of a space of like I feel like I was kind of like this and like spikes were in my energy field, like oh no, I don't want people around me and whatever. And now those spikes don't exist. It's like okay, I'm welcoming in and so it's like a magnetic draw of like the people who are supposed to find you are going to find you, and you didn't come here to do everything by yourself. And we're finding the people that we're meant to find to build the things that we're building.
We're
But it
never
really
ever
did
doing
require
anything by
me,
ourselves.
yeah, it did require me to like first feel the being alone without the loneliness or whatever. And it was very rewarding.
And I think also to tie this back to death and the fear of death, like I think so much of that fear is it's like, oh, this is something I have to go through alone.
Right.
And it's like, no, absolutely not. And also that's that expression, like you're born alone and you die alone, which
Hmm.
was coined, I forget who it was coined by, but I remember looking it up and it was a man. And I'm like, truly it had to be a man. I was like, are you're like the least alone you've ever been when you're born. You're inside of a human being's
I know.
body, attached by an umbilical cord, and coming out of it into the world. It's like, do you even know what alone means, man? Like, it's like, anyway, he was a
Yeah.
sexist man from the past, but you're
Yeah.
born alone. It's like,
Hmm.
um but yeah, it's like part of that fear is it's like this process that you have to go through alone, and that's just simply not true, even if at this point in time, which I don't think is necessarily um going to stay that way in terms of how we die, but at this point in time your body physically uh is it like you're like you're not dying with all of your loved ones at once at the same time,
Right.
right? Like you're having that level, but it's like you're you're everything that makes us up is just merging back into the whole of everything that makes us up. I think this is just coming to me now, this is a bit, but it's like, what is it? It's like if you, I was reading the thing the other day about our atoms or whatever, like the tiniest nano whatevers of our of the building blocks of life are surrounded by so much space,
Mm-hmm.
like empty space around them, that if you took away all the empty space, like a human body would be like the size of like a grain of dust or something. And I feel like that, and like our like so, and we're also like never like really touching things. Like we're our
Mm-hmm.
electrons and how our electrons are always like moving back and forth. Like if you're next to a chair, like you're actually merging with the chair and like it's going back and forth, all that stuff, which is like this weird combination of like the empty space idea of isolation with you're constantly merging with everything.
Yeah,
Your physical self is constantly merging with everything around you. I think that gets like at that level, it gets mixed up in there as well. So there's something about that empty space. I think that people project a lot of loneliness
probably.
onto.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're dying like there's the whole of consciousness there with you. There's ancestors present. There's so many things. You're dying wherever you are, surrounded by everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're in a dying in a hospital that was built by humans on a bed that was created by humans, or you're dying in a forest floor surrounded by, all of the
Mm-hmm.
nature awareness. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've said it again. I've said it enough times. We're not alone.
We're not alone.
We are not alone.
Yeah.
Um, so that there wasn't much more to the message than that, but I did,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have more things that you wanted to
No,
say,
I think that was a good
but I did
wrap
just
up.
want to share my spring oracle
Okay.
reading,
Yeah.
just to give a heads up. So winter, if there was like the more it snows, there was a lot about like walking around bearing it all. Both the figures in my winter one were naked, and it was a lot about bearing, and it was about dancing. One of the lines was dance like nobody's looming, and it was about your inner wildness coming out to it was like a lot of pan energy. The card said réveil ancienne pan, which is like wake up ancient pan being, but it's the feminine version, and it was this very androgynous feminine figure like dancing naked. um and it was Pan would use like their wildness to incite panic. That's where Pan comes from. Incite panic in giants to like
Oh.
win battles. So it was like, this is your time to tap into your inner wildness. And, we've seen it. We
Mm-hmm.
saw, we're like, wake up, everything's happening. And people are just getting more and more unruly and ungovernable and
Hell
wild
yeah.
as they're like, why am I letting this toxic structure have any say over my reality?
Yeah.
Um, Now, and the more it snows, boy, did it ever in North America snow like
Ooh.
crazy.
Yep.
So for spring, I'll show the cards here. So this one is a still from Babar, one of Babar's stories, and it's a
Yeah.
little baby elephant in a hammock surrounded by palm trees, and it's like the parent elephant, I think it's the mummy, is there like with her trunk on the baby's head, as the baby's just like sleeping peacefully. And there's little red birds and butterflies and flowers everywhere. And it's got a very summery feel. It says fusible web, the past, present, and future. This is like fall, last fall. I was telling the oracle reading was telling everyone, you gotta rest, you gotta rest. And it was during that gloomy, stagnant period because it was like, guess what? So winter's coming and winter's not going to be the usual hibernation rest period. So this also has that. This is like a lot of like, if you see red for me means take a rest, take a break, chill, take a nap, whatever. Just stop and rest. So that energy, and it was what also came through in the reading itself is like, if you didn't, like I didn't take enough time to rest in the fall, this is your second chance to really rest, which tells me that things are going to be, moving accelerated again. I don't know, but this period also sometimes, and this may also be like a little bit more the later spring, but it has that energy of like, the lazy hazy days of summer is what I call it in the reading, of like there it may feel like things are stagnant, like we go back into where we're like, wait, we were having all this, like, why are people not following up on this or that? But it's just like a rest period before things move forward again. So don't worry if there's things like at the collective level that seem like they're kind of stagnant again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the one card, is it's just pure peace, chilling vibe.
Yeah.
There's a lot about like time collapsing and being very in the present. That's a theme of both cards. It's like people really tapping into their ability to be in the present moment, and that's such an important and necessary tool to have in your toolkit right now, is finding ways to that take you right into the present moment, so you're not forecasting and you're not ruminating and you're not catastrophizing. Then total contrast, we have this one. It's from a Miro painting, and it's got this feminine figure with her arms in the air in front of a blue background, and there's like birds everywhere, and there's a bird on her head, and like she's spiky. She's got something zooming towards her that looks exactly like this was done, early mid 20th century, but it looks exactly like a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Like a colorfully decorated mobile phone. She looks like she's holding a cigarette, but it's like a weird little like beetle thing, but she looks like she's just having a blast at a party. There's a waning crescent moon behind her. And so it says the Christmas horde dove right in, coral bells, loose root. And this one is like, so we go from summer to winter, which is so far, I did this back in February, but so far, this is what the weather has been like. It's been ping-ponging back between summer energy and winter. So, but I do feel like that's more like early spring is going to have more of the winter, and the later spring is going to be maybe kind of hot. But the Christmas whore is also, so I called her, she's a Christmas whore, but she's also the ghost of Christmas presents. So presents, but also presents like gifts. And so she is all about, what I said was like, picture yourself at an end of your party that's going to leave it sideways. The music's full tilt, the dancing's riotous, and a lone finance guy is in the corner puking into a white elephant gift bag. So you can kind of from that infer what might be happening at the collective level. But my readings are always for the inner parts, youthful inner parts of ourselves that prioritize play in life and prioritize. So they're not really always concerned about like doing the work and stuff. So this one is like, stop following the news. The only news she's interested in is the sex gossip zooming towards her on her phone. She's here. She has her clitoral eye. She's protected by a sunshiny membrane around her face. It's like this yellow line, which also is there's a whole yellow frame around the Babar image. And her clitoral eye is laser focused on toasting the end of an epoch and having a good old time. I don't think I've done a collective reading yet for Fruit Slice Magazine that hasn't urged people to jerk off. This one really does. especially during the waning, aka wanking phase of the moon. So if you are on the spectrum, part of the spectrum where that's very unappealing, I would just say focus on other sensory pleasures,
Hmm.
sensory gratification. Um, and this is again about the power of fun to create your reality, right? It's like we've probably, a lot of us have spent the winter like kind of glued to what's happening because it's so dramatic.
Hmm.
But zoom out, let things get fluid. The less you look at the news, the more room there is for things to get really fluid and trippy and for big surprises to happen, like in a positive way. And the more you focus on having fun, the more you're putting that energy out into the world. It's like it's the opposite. You should feel the opposite of guilty because you're just making it easier for fun energy to flow into existence. And fun is so much more powerful than violence. Fun and joy are like just huge. As we've seen with like the heated rivalry and the stuff, like those things are massive catalysts for change.
Yep. You
So as I
nailed it.
said, like she's got this mallard on her head. It's like everything else is water off a duck's
Mm,
hat. Water off a
yeah,
duck hat is what I said.
I
So
like
you
it.
have that water off a duck's back. Like just tune the news out. I forgot to mention this one. The yellow background with the Babar was from a a book called Sun Moon Star that Kurt Vonnegut did with another co-creator, and it was like they did the illustrations first, and then Kurt Vonnegut looked at the illustrations and did a retelling of the creator story of it, like from the perspective of the creator being born. So this is about
Cool.
like you're tapping into your inner creator who's just been born. That's why you need to rest so much because being born is very exhausting. But yeah, you're tapping into your creator energy by resting. And at the end of it, I said we're like we love you to the sun, moon, stars, and back, little elephant. Which at the time I wrote it, I didn't know that we were actually there was a mission to go to the moon and back. So,
Ah, yeah.
um, yeah, but that's the create a very powerful little baby elephant creator self exists in spring who needs just like what does a newborn need, right? Like rest, food, and
Play.
and you've got yeah, and you've got your inner parent there. I
Mm,
described the love of your inner parent as unnervingly vast. So,
mm, I like it.
um,
It's funny that you mentioned the stars too in the moon mission because like I've seen a lot of people be like, "Where are the stars?" in all the photos.
that is
So that's a big
interesting.
focus, and then also the yellow reminds me of the solar plexus
Yes,
chakra,
yes.
the willpower.
Yeah, it's like using like oh, lately what's been getting I had to get to a certain point with my nervous system and all my trauma and blah 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 to be able to do this, but lately what's been really working for me is just saying I don't have time for this with my like any old mental health, physical health stories that are like have been winding up and it's like I just don't have time, like I have to. So the trick that's for me a little more tricky is doing that when I'm resting
Ah,
and when I'm just resting and just playing and like
hmm.
partying. When I'm working at something like a project, it's easy for me to say I don't have time to feel
Right.
sick or to buy into this old anxiety loop. So I guess that's a message I'm sending to myself right now is you gotta have that same mentality, but when you're not actually being productive, because as we know,
It's
being
easy to
productive
hide.
is fun, but it's not the end all and being
Yeah.
all. And resting is such a powerful catalyst as well for bringing things into fruition
Mm.
and just for enjoying yourself. This just popped out. This wasn't part of my oracle reading, but it popped out. It's from an Agatha Christie uh,
Nine
old
perverse,
nine perverse puzzles,
nine perverse puzzles.
an old Agatha Christie book cover where it's a guy in a bowler hat and he's got nine different colored gems over his face and like his vision.
Mm.
Um, the gems always make me think of DNA gem
Oh, right.
upgrades. I see DNAs um, I see 12 strand DNAs as like gemstones.
Hmm.
And there's this whole thing about shifting from two strand to like multi strand that's going to come with all these physical upgrades. So I always see that in the form of gemstones. So that's there. There's also all this rainbow color energy, seeing things through gems for the eyes of for prisms,
Hmm.
prismatic thinking. It popped out at the same time as suddenly on my YouTube I was playing music and this song came up, which was a mashup of Closer by Nine Inch Nails and Funky Town. So
Amazing.
the perverse part,
Unlikely pairings.
yeah,
Hmm.
like there's some of that BDSM energy, I
Hmm.
feel. I don't know what the puzzles. Do you have any hits off of this one?
Well, I
Is
was
this
thinking like, how we all well, because when I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, unlikely pairings. And I'm definitely part of an unlikely pairing, but it feels like we fit together like puzzle pieces. Like it could not be any more perfect, even though it's very unlikely. And also,
Oh,
my background is like I was part of the BDSM, so maybe that people are like kind of, and
yeah.
I had not an awakening with BDSM, but like it really helped me like over a lot of block, like I don't know. It's too big of a story to get into now or whatever, but it very much helped me to be part of the kink community to like, it's very much nervous system work in a very broad picture. That's all. I'll tell the story later or whatever, but like, yeah.
Yes, and also like as consciousness, like accepting the parts of ourselves that love
Hmm.
pain and destruction and that bring that into our reality. Kink is great for that.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. The other thing I'd add is it seems to be like an older form of masculinity. This guy from like early 20th century in a bowler hat, and
Hmm.
he's puzzled and he's looking at things through prism. So I think it's like that thing is that version of masculinity out there is and in here
Hmm.
uh is going to be puzzled and see things from new prismatic ways. And it's just like try not to get lost in mind traps because the intellect
Yeah.
wants to take hold of everything, and there are questions that can't be that aren't meant to be resolved by the intellect
Hmm.
and the mind. So that also came through.
Yeah.
But um,
Awesome.
yeah, 9. That's the number of
Completion.
yeah. So
Interesting.
we made it. We made it in our time frame just barely. So that's that. That's I can tell you summers. I've already done the summer one. It's incredibly psychedelic and trippy and dreamy. So I look forward to sharing that further along. But
All right.
you are not alone. We are not alone. We are here with you. We are literally here with you if you're listening to us. Hi, hello.
Hello.
I can see you. um, and we'll chat next time. Take it easy, Space Kitties. Oh, and please subscribe and also follow us and give us a 5-star rating. Thank you.
Yeah.